Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Scott Luton and Greg White here with you on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's Supply Chain Buzz. Greg, how you doing?
Happy New Year. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing wonderful.
Never know. I
Nice.
just dipped into my chair like 1 second before the camera hit me. Did you? If somebody's car alarm is going off outside.
Pulling an Enrique Alvarez, are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I tell you, folks, it's the first Supply Chain Buzz of the new year of 2023. We've had a couple weeks where we recharge the batteries, but everything's back, Greg. New episodes, new live streams, new webinars. With that said, is back. We're going to touch on that here in a moment. And most importantly, it's great to be reconnected with all the folks that show up in the skyboxes
Yes.
every Monday at 12 noon, huh?
Club level. Yeah,
Look.
exactly.
VIPs like Greg White. Well, hey, folks, today, and we're going to say hello to a few folks in just a moment. Today, again, it's Supply Chain Buzz. Every Monday, 12 noon Eastern time, you can find Greg and I and friends talking about some of the leading stories across global business. Now, today, we're going to be talking about new drone delivery successes, an update on the automotive industry, supply chain real estate. We're going to talk about some trends from 2022 when it comes to global supply chain and a lot more. And folks, get ready, because one of our favorite parts here, besides what Greg brings to the table every single week without fail, is all that y'all share in the comments. We love to hear your take on what's going on. So, Greg, should be a pretty big and full show, huh?
Well, it ought to be. I mean, we've been away for a little while. You'd think, I'm sure people expect that we have been preparing diligently.
That's all we did for
But
the
you
last
have.
2 weeks,
You have.
right? we were preparing every single minute of the last couple weeks, including all time spent in Kansas City. Wouldn't you say?
Unquestionably, I think we wanted to get a feel for what's going on around the world of supply chain, and what better city than one of the trucking capitals of America?
That is right. Okay. Well, let's say hello to a few folks before we share a couple of programming notes and then get into the news of the day. Of course, Catherine, happy Buzz Day, y'all. Happy Buzz Day to you, Catherine. Big thanks to what you and Amanda and Chantel and Clay, the whole crew, do each and every week. Brad Reeves, Supply Chain Now. Happy Monday, he says. Monday. So Brad's just
He's
ahead
way
of the
ahead of us.
right. But Brad, welcome to you. Perpetual Machua, hello to you. Welcome in via LinkedIn. Happy for you to be here with us. Let us know where you're tuned in from. Any guesses, Greg? Any guesses where Perpetual Machua maybe tuned in from?
Nigeria
Okay.
or let me think, Jamaica.
Okay. So Perpetual Machua, let us know where you're tuned in from. Great to have you here. Kavan is back.
Not in Jamaica.
That is right.
But I bet he
Kavan,
wish he was.
don't we all, man? But Kavan, happy New Year and happy first Buzz Day to you. And then, hey, who holds down the fort for us in Aiken, South Kakalaki, the one and only Leah Luton. Great to have you with us. Mom, aka Mom, great to have you here as always.
Hi, Mom.
Okay.
Send money.
That's right. Hey, money. Yeah, wasn't that a commercial? Hey, Mom, send money or something like that.
That was every football game ever when we were in college, right? Every kid would, "Hi, Mom, send money."
Amen. Okay. So I want to so welcome everybody. We're going to try to work everyone's comments in throughout the session. And by the way, Kenya, Perpetual Machua, Kenya,
Okay.
close, right?
Well, other side of the continent.
Other side, that's right.
On the continent, yes.
You know, I've already proven my lack of geographic ability globally here at Supply Chain Now. Hey,
well, I'll tell you why I know that.
Okay,
I mean,
please.
First of all, I love geography and all of that sort of thing, but also I watched Long Way Down, Ewan McGregor's adventure cycle ride from from London, not near Atlanta, from London to the tip of Africa in the Cape. So, and of course, he goes through Kenya, which, wow, what a beautiful country.
It is. It really is. One of I'm not gonna get her name right. One of the Hartfield Jackson Atlanta International Airport guest we've had with us. Her family's from Kenya. And man, the visuals she painted through a couple of different conversations she had.
Right.
I'm going to think of her. I'm having a Monday morning moment.
Starts
So
with an S.
yes. So we'll circle back. Maybe Amanda and Catherine can help me out there. But
yeah,
hey,
this is where the production crew really pays off.
That is right. Amen to that. Hey, the Doc Hollywood of Global Supply Chain. Holiday. Doc Hollywood. That was a Michael J. Fox movie. Doc Holliday is Fred Tolbert. Now, Fred says, and Fred, it's been too long. Hope to see you soon. Fred says it's a great day to be in supply chain. My day today, supply chain now, and then a bulldog frog gigging tonight. Greg?
Oh, man. I hope he's right. So, for those of you who don't know, the college football national championship, the Natty, as we call it here in the South, the Natty is tonight, and Georgia, the University of Georgia, is trying to repeat against Texas Christian University from Fort Worth in beautiful LA in SoFi Stadium. Right. So
not Lower Alabama, the real
Los Angeles.
Yes,
that's right.
So good luck to all of our Bulldog friends and fans, and also all of our TCU friends as well. They've got a great supply chain program at both schools. So, all right, we got to get out of business, Greg. We got so much to catch up on. It's so great to be back. That's right. So great to be back with all the folks in the comments. Thanks so much for being a part of our journey. All right, so really quick, folks. We over the weekend we touched on a 4-part leadership tune-up, and really it could have been a 5-parter, and maybe it started to be a 5-parter, but that 5th thing would have been, hey, you got to get involved, you got to give forward, you got to do good, you got to do everything, you got to take on the greater good in many ways, far beyond the core business, right? And one of the ways you can do that with our extended fam here at Supply Chain Now is with our Leveraging Logistics for Ukraine initiative. Now, this is led by Maureen and Enrique and Christy at the powerful Vector Global Logistics organization, which does a lot of great good, do good work. But as they always are, Greg, they are open arms, always welcoming for folks just to get involved, whether you want to come to the planning meeting like tomorrow at January 10th at 11 a.m., just to come in and kind of get a feel of what's going on, or if you're in position to donate towards helping folks in Ukraine and Poland and that region. But everyone is welcome. Greg, your thoughts around this ongoing initiative?
Yeah, well, let's not forget that that's still going on. I mean, I think we've had a lot of other things in the news, and I think it's important to recognize that people are still suffering, right? Russia continues to oppress and attack. And there, a lot of people have had to leave their country, their homes, all of their belongings, and many of their belongings have been completely destroyed. If you've seen any pictures or video lately, so this is a great initiative. It is, it's really just a collection of people who care, both in Poland predominantly, but in Eastern Europe and here in the States, like you said, led by the folks at Vector. And some really key large companies who are facilitating very economic shipping of this life-saving material.
Definitely. And speaking of which, we don't have an updated figure. The last updated figure, Greg, that we got in terms of outcomes, over 500,000 pounds of vetted humanitarian aid getting to folks that were vetted in terms of truly being in need. So folks, join in. The link to join this session, Greg, we dropped it in the chat. You can learn more information there. It's free to join. Again, you don't have to come to tomorrow's session and contribute anything. You just come and listen. But we'd invite you to join us. Okay, so Greg, and great to see Joey back with us. Joey, hope this finds you well up in Minnesota, I believe. Eno, hey, I agree with you. And, we don't take any of the credit. Maureen, Enrique, the whole Vector team, Chris, the whole Vector team, they really have built this thing from the ground up, and a very lovely and needed effort indeed. Welcome to the show, Eno. Okay, so Greg, one other quick programming note. I mentioned this already. The 4-point leadership tune-up. We released Saturday morning. It's part of our ongoing weekly With That Said LinkedIn newsletter. Now, we stole some great insights from across the ecosystem, including some from this guy right here, the one and only Greg White. So y'all check that out. We've got, as y'all can see there, almost 19,000 subscribers. And we'd love to hear from you. You know, did we get it wrong? Did we get it right? What would you add? What would you take off? But y'all check it out. We're going to drop the link in that chat. Greg, if there's one thing that comes to mind, one thing before we get into the news, one leadership tip that comes to mind for this new year for leaders in any industry, what would that be?
Wow. You're not a leader because people obey you. You're a leader because people follow you. Be the kind of person that people want to follow.
That is beautifully said, as always, and so true. A timeless truth, I think, in this journey we're on. So, folks, take action. You got to step up and be a real leader. To Greg's advice there. Okay, so let's do this, Greg. Are you ready to dive into the first story here today? Oh, wait a second. Josh Goody, great to have you. Rainy and 41.
God. How long has it been since we got a weather report from Seattle? Well, I mean, other than yesterday during the game, but and by the way, congratulations to the Seahawks, Josh.
That's right. Made the playoffs, my mighty Seahawks. Okay, and great to have you, Josh. Happy New Year to everyone here. All right, so Greg, what I also didn't touch on, I lost my mind on the segue here, on that With That Said leadership tune-up, since we kind of embraced the automotive theme, it happened to be Saturn, the old car company that's no longer around. I think it was the 38th anniversary of the launch of the Saturn automotive line. Now, the last Saturn, Greg, rolled off the assembly line in 2007. Now, I had, Greg, if you can picture this, I know it's not walking down the hall thinking of challenges you got, but picture this. I had, as a E3 in the United States Air Force, as 2 stripes, making about, this is the mid 90s. I was making about $600, as I recall, per paycheck twice a month. Wow. And I spent a quarter of that. Yeah, big dollars. I spent a quarter of that monthly income, Greg. What was I thinking? On a Saturn SL2 midnight blue, had a straight shift. And man, I drove that thing all around Columbia and then drove it out to Wichita, Kansas, Greg, where I spent 2 years with the Air Force out there.
Yeah.
Drove it all the way back, put about 100,000 miles on that bad boy. And first purchase, and then, Greg, what followed the Saturn, as I've talked about here, 4 consecutive 4-door Honda Accords. That's how exciting of an individual I am, Greg. Your response?
4 Hondas over what time frame, though? I mean, a lot of years.
Oh, gosh. Probably about a 10-year, maybe a 12-year period after the Saturn SL2 went.
And and certainly not because they were worn out, just because, they weren't dead, right? Your Hondas weren't dead.
Nope. Those things don't die. They just keep on.
That is true. So I have to tell you, I was dubious of the entirety of Saturn from the very beginning, and they, over time, proved me right. 2 of the biggest, and greatest car makers got together and made one of the worst cars in history. Now, you got 100,000 miles out of yours, which is very impressive, but I don't know if people know that was a collaboration between GM and Toyota. Is that what it was? Toyota, right? Yeah.
I think you're right. Right.
And somehow they had all kinds of problems with these cars, but they did have some really cool componentry. Weren't they plastic body panels, right? Not metal.
That they were one of the earliest entrants into the EV market, forever ago.
No negotiation.
No negotiation.
Paid the sticker price.
Yeah. For weenies like me, not Greg, that hate to haggle, man, that was like, now Greg, my next car or house or anything else I buy, I'm gonna go in there with Greg or Fred Midkiff, and we're gonna kill it. But one last thing, and we'll get to news, folks. Y'all indulge us here on the first buzz of 2023.
This is automotive news.
Yeah, it's automotive news. That's right. But Greg, can you imagine You know how far it is from, say, Atlanta or even further east, Aiken, South Carolina to Wichita,
Yeah.
Kansas. I haven't driven a straight shift in a long time. That was like a 20, as I recall, about a 22-hour straight drive coming back east from Wichita to Aiken, all with a straight shift. So, most of it was interstate, and that's okay because I had cruise on that fifth gear. But every town, every exit, man, how did my right knee make it?
No kidding. I mean,
Or my left knee, rather. My
definitely,
left
yeah.
knee.
But man, if you could do it with your right knee, that's truly impressive.
Right.
But you're right. I remember when I moved to Atlanta, I drove a stick shift, and I thought I was going to die. I literally thought my left knee was going to blow out because of all the stops and starts. I mean, at
Oh,
least on the highway, right, you're fine. But yes, I got to tell you, this is a totally different topic. But in Europe, the stick shift has been very prominent. I don't know if it is still, but it has been very prominent. And driving in a European city is an absolute nightmare. They're tiny, tiny roads, lots of stops and starts. I am truly impressed by Europeans who can drive a stick shift in a city environment, particularly in their cities.
right.
Yeah, gosh, that's crazy, man.
Isn't it, though?
Well, it was fun. It was fun for a time, right? I mean, I
Right.
think we both took a lot of pride in being able to drive a stick shift and being able to jam the car through the gears. But whew,
Well, my next stick shift, I am making a promise to myself. It'll come with an engine with a bit more than 120 horsepower. So we'll see how that goes. But hey, folks, we digress. But as Greg mentioned, it is a related note because
there
we're
we go.
leading off today, Spot Chain Buzz, again every Monday at 12 noon Eastern time, with an update on the automotive industry, right? So, as reported by CNBC here, industry estimates for new cars and trucks, automobiles sold here in the US range from 13.7 to 13.9 million new vehicles. Now, that is 8 to 9% lower than what the volume sold in 2021. And it's the worst sales year since 2011. So most automakers were impacted, with the exception, Greg, of General Motors, who
Right.
saw a slight increase in 2022 over the 2021 sales figures. Honda, on the other hand, had one of the worst years, as its 2022 sales were down almost 30% from 2021. Man, they need more Scott Lutons that want some of those Honda Accords, I guess.
Well, I think that they got the double whammy, right? Because they're in Japan, of course, and their cars, or many of the components of their cars, are sourced in Asia, and Asia was locked down the most and the longest. I think there were some other cars, Nissan and a couple of other brands, that also had double-digit decreases. Nobody as bad as Honda,
You're right.
um, but they, that they kind of got the double whammy from the chip shortage and and of course the constant lockdowns throughout 2021.
Yep.
So
No whammies, no whammies, no whammies. Stop.
um,
Any 80s game show enthusiasts out there. But hey, there's always next year. Looking at next year, many automotive industry execs are optimistic, given demand, which has been fairly stable, and inventory gains, right? Hey, there's a few more cars on the dealership lots out in our neck of the woods. So, Greg, that's a great call out around Honda, that double whammy. Anything else you'd add to what's going on in the automotive industry?
yeah, I saw an article. I think it was in Business Insider, so I get a newsletter from them periodically. Silly article that said car buying has changed forever. I think that's maybe wishful thinking by some of the automakers, that people got used to ordering cars and paying full price and that sort of thing. That's very temporary. I can tell you, look, economic conditions are going to drive how we, and the availability of physical purchasing are
Mm,
going to drive how we buy cars. And it will go back to the lots, just like people have gone back to the stores. I
right.
mean, we didn't spend all of our time at home because we wanted to. We spent all our time at home because we had to. So I think for some people who are shut-ins or something like that, or antisocial, they may still be able to do that. But you've always been able to do that with certain cars. They've tried to enable that. I think what it could accelerate is the disintermediation of car dealers, who at this point, really, what value do they add other than holding the inventory on behalf of the manufacturers? But profit in selling a car has long since gone away for car dealers. Members of my family have owned car dealerships in the past and don't now.
Yeah.
So, for whatever that's worth.
So
I think it's possible. We talk a lot about, this is the time of year when we talk a lot about predictions. Car buying has not changed forever. It has changed temporarily, and it's probably changed for some people. But I think I'm hopeful that we'll start to see cars on the lots, though I think we're still seeing either a shortage or an intentional lowering of inventory on lots. Toyota, I've seen a number of Toyota dealerships. I just happened to drive by a couple on the way to the airport, and they seem to still have pretty light lots. But GM was able to put a lot of cars on lots relative to other makers, and truly, that's how you made gains in the industry, was just having cars.
Yeah, that's right. If you want to sell cars, I guess it's kind of important that you have cars to sell.
Well, I'm a personal, not just me, but in our family during that time, we ordered 2 different cars and did wait months and months and months for them. And let me assure you that that is not an experience that I or anyone in my family wants to go through again.
Right.
When you want a car, you want it now.
Right. And then the registration dilemma that I got play by play on. So
yes.
But
yeah.
With all that said, though, looks like the automotive industry, generally speaking, is taking some steps towards whatever the new normalcy looks like. And Nerf, I love what he says here. I drive a stick shift like my life depends on it. Nerf, I can picture that, Greg, can't you?
He does everything like his life depends on it. He plays with his kids like his life depends on it. He does his work like his life depends on it. Where Nerfod, we can call him that, but LinkedIn won't let him put that on his, for some reason, on his profile anymore. But where Nerfod is from, you did everything like your life depended on it because it did. So he and his family brought a lot of that to the States and, to Canada. Sorry.
All right.
I forgot those guys up there. And we're thankful for it, right?
That's right.
That kind of spirit is what keeps us moving forward as a society.
That is right. Nerf, great to see you and your family. Hope you had a wonderful start.
Have him on here, isn't it? Seems like it's been a while.
And Josh is talking about, don't forget the seatbelt shortage from Ukraine.
Great. And wiring, right? Wiring harnesses for almost all of the German makes were made in Ukraine. Excellent point, Josh.
Agreed. Okay. Well, so moving right along, we pop this up here. We are going to be talking about drone deliveries, from dealerships to drones. So Walmart recently announced that it had successfully completed over 6,000 drone deliveries in 2022. So as reported here by Supply Chain Dive, Walmart has partnered with several tech companies to create 36 drone delivery hubs in 7 U.S. states. The retailer's current goal is 1 million drone deliveries annually. So we got a little ways to go. Now, Greg, get this.
Yes, sir.
This is my favorite part of the story. Of 6,000 drone deliveries, the most popular items ordered were store brand, like the Walmart Good Value brand, cookies and cream ice cream, number one, Bounty paper towels, number 2, and get this, rotisserie chickens. Now, this might pose a problem.
Who says chickens can't fly?
That's better than I had. Well, I was going to ask the question, can these drones fly faster than a red-tailed hawk? In this neck of the woods, we're going to find out. But also, Amazon, this is kind of one area where Walmart and its ongoing battle with Amazon is actually ahead of Amazon. That might surprise a few folks. Amazon has re-kicked off its drone delivery last December, as Amazon Prime Air is now operating out of Lockford, California, and College Station, Texas, as they pilot some new practices there. Greg, your thoughts when it comes to all things drones?
Boy, I don't know how to feel about drones. Honestly, I just see eventually the skies being completely crowded with these things, and eventually we're going to have cookies and cream ice cream chicken, rotisserie chicken, at some point when there's a collision and it hits the ground. I mean, I think it's great to experiment with these things. I'm stunned that number one was cookies and cream, especially store brand.
Right.
Walmart store brand, really? I'm just thinking which trailer park that must have gone to, because, over and over and over again. Because who orders that with urgent need?
Mm. No
Uh,
kidding.
I don't know. I've never had a rotisserie chicken at Walmart. Have you?
Uh,
Costco.
yeah, Costco's got our business now. You can't beat those rotisserie chickens. I'm sure we have. But still, the sense of urgent. I can't wait to see it, and I can't wait to see some of the headaches you point out, right, that come with it, that we all know about, and then undoubtedly as this grows and more companies experiment, some of the challenges in the blind spot that we're going to have to figure out down the road.
So, well, I mean, one of the things that drone does give you is if you have a fence around your yard, right? Which I think very few people in the States these days do. Um, if you have a fence in your yard, it's not hindered by that. Whereas a lot of these ground based, and I'm not sure that we're talking about flying drones now that you mention it. Are we
Right.
talking about flying drones, or
For
could these be those little drone carts?
That's definitely in play. But the 6,000 drone deliveries,
Were
according
air?
to the story, were air
Yeah.
drones.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Um, okay. Hey, really
So,
quick.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to think about that. What do you think about it, Scott?
Um, a couple thoughts. I think inevitably with some of the other challenges we talk about, and I love your sentiment that the truck driver challenge is never going to get solved. What would be interesting, I love kind of how it drone deliveries help some of those challenges, but the sheer scale for it to truly make a dent in the universe and the logistical and infrastructural challenges that will pose. I mean, you think of the ports, right? Ongoing story this year. We're touching on it in a minute. The lack of communication and visibility amongst all the stakeholders in the ports been operating for, since the beginning of time, it feels like. Well, now apply all of that to the skies, to something that's brand new for so many. And I can see all kinds of communication issues that could be a lot more dangerous in the years to come. So I've kind of like you, I've got mixed thoughts. I love to see the innovation, the
Yeah.
experimentation, especially in a real practical sense. But man, moving it towards the scale that it needs, the tipping point you have to be at, man, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I mean, I just it's just one of those things that I can't quite wrap my head around. So I'm going to have to learn a lot more, see it more.
Right. Hey, really, a couple quick thoughts here. Nerf, Canada. Oh no, you didn't. I think Nerf is in the Detroit area, if I'm not mistaken.
It was in
Close.
Toronto.
Toronto. Is he? Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Nerf, I've got it wrong then. So beautiful Toronto. Now, Christine, back to the story. Christine says this will be regulated eventually and not be scalable. That's a good
Hmm.
take. That's a good take. And
It
Abdel Hamid,
is. I think that's a good
Christine.
take. I mean, I think there's a possibility that, but has any government regulation ever stopped Walmart? I remember way back when the protests
True.
about no Walmart in my neighborhood, and now they are everywhere, right?
You are so right. I remember when the first one came to Aiken, South Carolina, but I'll save that for another time.
I remember when
Okay.
they tried to put one in Northeast Wichita,
Yeah.
in the posh part of town, and you know what that part of town is like, and they were having a fit. But
Mm.
boy, you see a lot of Mercedes and Range Rovers in that parking lot now.
Let's see here. A couple of the comments before we move on. Josh says, for people who don't know how to tailgate, drone delivery could be great for game days. Man, Josh, excellent point there.
Oh my gosh. Scott, Kansas City Joe's, KC Joe's barbecue. You just
Yep.
order it and say deliver it to F-25 in the Chiefs parking lot.
Man, I love that.
There are through tailgates all the time. So,
But think of the BYOB application. You know, when you didn't
ooh.
prepare, you had some extra guests show up at your tailgate, you know, and at halftime you're running out of beer. Man, then someone will figure out to make that $1 billion opportunity. We'll
Well,
see.
I'm just saying, if you're still tailgating at halftime, you got bigger problems
That's a
with
good point.
beer than not
Hey,
having enough.
there's been some challenging Clemson seasons in my background, Greg. I'm
We
just
had
gonna
to go.
leave it at that, okay?
Yeah,
Geneva says it does sound good, but it looks like it would be complicated. Might not be an everyday success story.
yeah.
Good point there.
I think we'll have to watch this evolve. That's an excellent point. It's going to take some years. This is not a tomorrow solution. This is a next 10
That's right.
years solution. We'll see how it evolves.
That's right.
Great
I
point.
mean, if Walmarts of the world who have a million delivery goal start with 6, and you know that tells you a lot right there.
Yeah.
Okay, really quick programming note. Thanks for all the comments. Y'all keep the comments coming. Greg and I and the whole team is one of our favorite parts of our live stream programming. Um, Speaking of programming, quick programming note. Check out the Business Buzz that we released today on Supply Chain Now's podcast channel. I shared a few news items, Greg, some data nuggets, a little bit of Greg White wisdom. I think I snuck in this piece, as
Did
well
you?
as I did, as well as what I'm calling this faith in humanity is kind of a theme I've been embracing with these. And we conclude on this faith in humanity piece. It's focused on a hero nicknamed Merry Christmas Jay. So give it a listen. You can get the rest of the story. So it says, and we're going to drop the Captivate link, the direct play link in the chat, so y'all can give that. It's probably like a 10-11 minute episode, so you can get that done. Not even going to take your full lunch hour. So y'all check that out. All right, Greg, where are we going next? Let's see here. I think we're going to be talking about trends, global supply chain trends in 2022. We're kind of touching on
Yeah.
a few of these here, right? So in one of your recent patented Greg White supply chain commentaries, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you got to connect or follow Greg on LinkedIn to tune in and not just consume his take, always entertaining take, but comment on it. So on one of your recent ones, Greg, you focus on the supply chain dive story. It looked at 9 of the biggest supply chain trends in 2022. Tell us more.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things we talked about was what do I want to say? It's really hoping for normalcy, right? I mean, there are all kinds of things that people are doing. They're trying to get rid of inventory, but some of this had a distinctly backward-looking perspective. And the thing that really struck me about the article that my commentary is based on is this pursuit of normalcy, right? I think we just got to forget that, right? That's foundationally flawed methodology for supply chain, right? Disruption is normalcy was one of the points that I made. But look, when a certain disruption happens, you load up on inventory. And we started talking at the beginning of last year about what a problem that was. Patio furniture was the story of the year for us, right? Patio furniture and joggers and sweatpants.
Right.
Right. Everybody was loading up on those. And of course, since everybody was freed from lockdown early in the year, they weren't spending as much time at home on their patio furniture in their jogging pants. They were out traveling the country and going and seeing things and places. And I think, one of the things we have to be careful to do is to look forward at demand, not look back at demand. If the last 2.5, almost 3 years now, God, my gosh, is that right? Yes. If the last almost 3 years have taught us nothing, it is that the past is no indication of the future, right? What is an indication of the future is what's impacting us today or what we anticipate to impact us in the future. We've been watching it throughout this year as people have started battening down the hatches and tightening their belts and all those other cliches around an economy slowing down, which it has unquestionably done. GDP growth was absolute zero this year in the United States. So, and of course inflation. So you have to identify those things that are impacting people today, and most importantly, you have to stop hoping for normalcy. I bet you said you were going to address some of the statements in this thing, so I'm
Yes.
curious what one you would latch onto before I lose a spoiler.
Oh, two of them. So I love how you opened it, and I'm not gonna share my ugly graphics here. I tried to do a snip and chop from your LinkedIn post, but the first, this is quote, I quote Greg White here, quote, "The first, and I must admit, best advice I received when entering the supply chain profession was assume everyone will fail you." So that's a good one. But what I loved is what you close with. So y'all get this. So Greg's talking about how you can't expect normalcy. We're not going back. Is kind of what long lines he just shared. He says, he gets Dr. Seuss here. He goes, quote, "Dig a deeper moat, build higher walls, make your roofs of slate, for there be dragons, and don't forget to lock the back gate." I love that, Greg.
That was more Game of Thrones for me
Oh, there you go.
than Dr. Seuss. It just happened to rhyme. I realized as I wrote it, but I was thinking about, one of the things that I've watched companies try to solve as solution providers and as practitioners is, how do we predict the next black swan, the next major disruption, right? The next interference in the goodness of supply chain. And the truth is, you don't need to and cannot, in many cases, predict that particular thing that will impact your supply chain. What you can do, however, is you can dig a deeper moat, build higher walls, and make your roofs of slate, um, by finding those weakest points in your supply chain and then addressing those. Then no matter what causes disruption, you have done as good as you can with your supply chain in creating that resiliency that we talk about. Creating resiliency is as simple as eliminating fragility. It's as simple as eliminating those blind spots, those weak spots, right? Those I don't know spots, and of course, bad relationships or relationships with bad organizations, right?
Yep.
So one of the things I encourage a lot of companies to do is don't plan for whether there's going to be another pandemic, though Bill Gates says there is. And it's funny how often what Bill Gates says happens, like really suspicious. But whether it's a pandemic, whether it's another ship getting stuck, whether it's a ship sinking, or, whether, Florida falls off, God forbid, into the ocean, right? We just don't know what all of those disruptions could be, and therefore we shouldn't plan for the disruption, because if we do that, we are single threading ourselves, and we're only creating resiliency against one thing that could happen when 999,999 things could have the same effect on our supply chain or hit us in the same spot. So it's better to attack your weak spots. Make sure the back gate is closed. I don't know if anybody even remembers Game of Thrones anymore, but this big giant castle and like 8 guys go in the back because that's where the guards went out to smoke or whatever they were doing.
They could have been doing all kinds of things in that series, Greg, but we'll save that for another time. But a couple things also, because what prompted Greg for this supply chain commentary was this article that looked back, I think, at 9 different trends, Greg, and a couple quick thoughts that stood out to me. The shifting of volume, of course, from West Coast to East Coast ports was a regular theme. Then the December 2022 numbers haven't been released yet for the Port of Savannah, all terminals, right? But when they are, that Port of Savannah will set a new all-time record, somewhere around 5.8 million 20-foot equivalent units shipped, TEUs. So that was one thing that stood out.
Correct.
What's that?
For the Port of Savannah, not for all ports.
Right. All terminals that make up the Port of Savannah. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And then the second thing, we're talking about drones a second earlier. Robotics and automation and the march for more of all of that stuff was one of the 9 trends that the story cited. McKinsey & Company estimates there were 1.5 million drone deliveries overall in 2022. Now that's up from the 500,000 that they estimated in 2021. So, regardless of what anyone's take is on drone, of course, there's a lot more information coming to all of our points. But what I like about that figure is that's basically 1.5 million experiments to crack the code to figure out the practicality of it all. So that's really cool. So Greg, before I share a couple quick comments, any final and the next story, any final thoughts around any trends across supply chain last year?
Yeah, one that I saw and I think we all saw that I don't really see as sustainable is retailers or other supply chain practitioners, manufacturers, whatever, buying software companies and making it part of their practice, which is a distinctly different business. I don't see that as sustainable, and we'll start to see some of those, maybe not in the next year, but like many things in retail or in finished goods, we'll start to see the pendulum swing back the other way when they realize that's not sustainable. Kind of like, and this is a common thing in trucking as well, or in supply chain as well, when big chains start to buy their own trucking companies or create their own trucking internally, and then they realize that's not cost effective, and then they swing back to using all spot or contract market or whatever, or find some hybrid in between. I think there are some opportunities there. That's one thing that jumps out at me as something that we'll start to see reverse. We've already started to see Costco and Home Depot and Walmart selling off the ships that they bought.
Yep.
When the great carrier shortage, ocean carrier shortage occurred. So these are temporary things. They're not in a lot of cases even meant to be sustainable, but I think it does open up a good opportunity for companies to realize that they can be better partners to these finished goods manufacturers and retailers and distributors if those companies feel compelled to buy or build their own technologies.
Yeah, that's a great point. It kind of goes in line with getting ready, building more resilience, as Perpetual puts it, for any challenge that comes our way, right? Relationships, big part of that. Okay, y'all bear with me. I've had a little bit of a congestion, and I've been fighting it through it. And I don't know, this Monday morning hit me again. So if I sound hoarse or sound an octave lower, y'all know we're fighting.
Your mic makes up for it really well.
Oh, good, nice.
Yeah, you still sound like a DJ.
Okay, Greg. That's high praise from one Greg White. Okay, hey, really quick, thank you, Amanda. Linda Eshawani Nate is who we were trying to thank on the front end of the show. That is the business lead, one of the business leaders at the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, one of the best airports in the world. And Linda's got a great story as her family is from Kenya. And I want to say she makes a trip back. The pandemic, I'm sure, threw things for a loop, but one of her last appearances with us makes a trip back every year or every other year. So wonderful stories there, Linda.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Christine, we were talking about jogging suits. Christine says it's called athleisure. So, very nice. Very nice.
Right. You call it whatever you want. It's
right.
Still sweatpants and yoga pants.
All right. So Greg,
I think athleisure is actually a company too, isn't it? I think that's is that Gwyneth Paltrow's company or somebody like that?
Could be. It's due to me. All right. So final story of today, Supply Chain Buzz. Again, every Monday, 12 noon Eastern time. We're talking supply chain real estate. Where's Ward Richmond when you need Ward? We'll see. We got to get him back on the horn. But according to the Wall Street Journal, warehouse leasing has really slowed down. The space was busting at the seams, of course, throughout the pandemic. I want to say Amazon doubled their footprint, amongst many others. Yeah. But now, according to Cushman and Wakefield data, warehouse leasing volume has dropped in third quarter and fourth quarter 2022. Now, Greg, it's about to get worse because there is still over 682 million square feet of warehouse space being built, and 83% of that is not tied to any occupants. So Your thoughts here, Greg?
This is a frequent and tragic cycle, isn't it? I mean, we ramp up everything right until the end, and then we are peak deniers, right? I mean, real estate agents didn't want to believe that housing was going to downturn. Of course, they don't want to believe it, and I am continually challenged to think about how we can provide some external perspective that says, okay, enough is enough, right? Because this frequently happens. I think back to the Great Recession when we saw subdivisions with $300,000 homes being built, right? And then that all of a sudden stopped, and then 2/3 of the land sits not undeveloped, but unbuilt for nigh on a decade, and then they come in and build $170,000 homes, which rapidly become $300,000 homes anyway. And I knew this was coming with warehousing. I didn't realize it was going to be to this extent. 83% of it unclaimed is a lot. I knew it was slowing. I have a friend who actually builds and remodels the facilities for Amazon, and they had huge plans for the coming decade still, and or not the decade we're in, and they accelerated a lot of that just in time for everyone to go back to the stores and reduce the need for that kind of distribution. So, and that's where a lot of this warehouse building has been, is final mile fulfillment centers, or final mile distribution centers, those sorts of things. So we're going to see it. Some of them were really beautiful, and of course that's another thing that I pass on. I don't know if everybody knows this, but I have a 40-mile drive to the Atlanta airport from my house, so I see a lot on the way. And I go through that Fulton industrial area that has, warehouses where I thought they would never build, and some of them beautiful and big. I mean, these ain't your
some not,
and for lease, in case anyone's wondering. And so, it's been a look. These are the cycles of economics, right? When everyone is looking up, that's when it's time to start looking down, and when everyone is looking down, that's when it's time to start looking up. So it's really hard to have that discipline. It's a herd mentality, and we are herd animals. So it's difficult for us not to go through these kind of boom and bust cycles, but we are going to. And if you've read anything about what IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and World Bank, and companies like that, or organizations like that, are thinking, it's going to be a rough 2023. I've also heard some relative soft landing talk as well. So like me, the economists don't know. Scott, you might as well call yourself an economist as well. You're right as often as they are.
All my collegiate teachers would vehemently disagree with that.
And Lee Glasgow.
Right. And Lee Glasgow.
Lee, who really has some actual skills in that. You can see him cringe whenever I say it. I can feel him cringing right now as I say that. I am not.
There's a disturbance in the force.
They are.
By the way, great episode. You and I reconnected with Lee a few weeks back. We'll see if Amanda and Catherine can drop the link to that episode. Lee, I'll tell you, Lee is a fount of industry knowledge, and you name it. So
he really is refreshing to talk to, right? He works for a media organization, so and he is in the highest level of the media organization, the true analysts who actually do the work of trying to figure out where business is and where it's going. He's not a talking head. He knows of what he speaks. And when it comes to transportation, I haven't met anybody who knows as much as he does.
Agreed. Very nice. Nicely said, and completely agree with that. Hey, going back to supply chain real estate, Josh says Spirit of Halloween is going to have a field day this fall. They're going to be popping up everywhere, Greg. We're going to have 3 of them in our neighborhood, Hey, look,
why is that? Sorry.
that's the spirit of Halloween's are those stores that
Oh
set up
yeah,
like 30 days before Halloween,
yeah.
for like
Oh,
45
did I
days.
miss some news? Are they overstocked on?
Oh, I think Josh is just talking about how they're going to have lots and lots of selections with all the open and available real estate.
Oh my gosh, yes,
Ah,
that's right. So I wonder what it's like at retail level, right? I've actually seen a bit of a comeback. We have one of those kind of mini malls right near the house.
yeah,
I've
yeah.
actually seen a pretty good comeback of stores. There is still a bookstore. There's a Barnes and Noble bookstore in this
Really?
facility. Yes, and doing great. I mean, a ton of brands you would never expect. Hallmark, there's a Hallmark
Yeah.
store. I'm more and more convinced because guys, 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 plan ahead a little bit. But if you don't, Hallmark stores are a great place to go. A Joseph A. Bank store, a Barnes and Noble,
Yep.
just amazing,
Yep.
amazing. Some of these brands that continue to thrive.
Yeah, there's a Barnes and Noble in the perimeter part portion up near Sandy Springs in Atlanta. It's been there forever, and they just do a great job. They know that they focus on their community and book orders and all the in person service and then I still like it. Might be outdated, well outdated maybe, but I love going into a bookstore and touching all the books available. I'm a big hard copy individual. And by the
So
way,
it's interesting, we have Gen Zers and millennials in our organization as well, and many of them like actual hard copy books. I was just talking to Clay, right, the Diesel. I was just
right,
talking to him about that today, and I offered him my Audible version of a book, and he's like, "No, I'm a hard copy book reader." Now, there's irony for you, right? Gen X reading or not reading, listening to books, and Gen Z, reading, wanting the
yep,
physical experience of it. I love that. I think that's fantastic.
so true. And Josh clarifies here. Spirit of Halloween has a habit of going into very recently
Yeah, that's
closed
right.
storefronts.
No, it wasn't a bad joke,
Yeah, it's
Josh.
good,
I
Josh.
just
Keep it
was not
coming.
getting it. Yeah, bad audience. It was a tough
Right.
audience. Let's go with that.
Let's see here. I want to go back. So we're about to close, but I want a big show Bob Bovey here, going back to kind of trends. And he says two things: some knee-jerk reaction to the supply chain crisis, having some payback. Also, location, location, location. Some of these warehouses are going to get snapped up. Happy New Year, boys. Well, hey,
Yeah, happy New Year, Bob.
Bob, hope this finds you well. So,
Some
Greg,
will, but not all.
right.
Um, some will sit stagnant, and if you have a REIT that's invested in warehouses that aren't yet built,
Mm,
just hold on to your hat.
that's right. And Christine, drone book deliveries are gonna happen. They're gonna happen. Hey, maybe so. Maybe so. All right. Well, Catherine, going to your point, Catherine is a hard copy reader too. I can't get through books on a Kindle. Greg, do you have that challenge too?
Uh, Reading is a challenge for me. I mean, I can read. I just want you to understand that I can read, but it's a very difficult process for me. I'm a very slow reader,
Mm,
and also have a tendency, as people get to watch here, to kind of go this direction and then that direction, right,
mm.
and the other direction, and then I have to go back and read 3 pages. Because what I think is amazing about the human brain is you can continue to read the pages on a book and be thinking about something totally different.
Yes. I'm glad you called that out. I,
It's
I
not
wasn't
just
sure.
you. It's in fact,
Okay, good.
it's a lot of people. And I have fairly frequently, have a relatively long time in the car between one house and the other, and I listen to books. I do the Audible thing. But when you get into a stressful traffic situation, which is 100% of the time in Atlanta,
Yep.
you'll find yourself still hearing it in the background, but you're not listening to it because you're going, "Is that the person that's going to run me off the road, or is that?"
Yep.
So, I mean, but I'm glad that I'm doing it. Actually, I can tell you this: if you want to make your life better,
Yep.
do more and read more. It's
That's a
as
good point.
simple as that. If whenever I read something, I learn something.
Hmm. All right, $1 billion advice from the one and only Greg White here today on the Supply Chain Buzz. A couple quick comments here.
Inflation. Only $1 billion at inflation.
Mom, Lee Luton says, same here. I need to turn the pages of a real book and make notations
I
and
was gonna
highlight.
ask her that. And yeah, does she dog ear them and does she make
Yeah.
notes? That's good.
Amanda, right? I read 83 books in 2022. That's got to be a record of some sorts. And one last thing here, we're gonna kind of bookend today's buzz because I want to make a big push for folks joining us tomorrow for the planning session of leveraging logistics for Ukraine at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Y'all check out the link. If y'all could drop it again in the comments, that'd be great. Just a planning session. You don't have to commit to anything. Just sign up. But if you attend that session, if you sign up today, here's what we're gonna do, Greg. If y'all sign up for that session today and join us in doing good, right, giving forward, I'm going to give you, if you're interested,
A book.
we'll have a drawing. That's right, a book. Thank you, Greg. You saw where I was going. So
Okay.
I've got Beyond Good right here is one of my favorite reads. I just spent some time with Theodore Lau. She was co-author of that with Bradley Limer. It's a great read, really kind of focused on the technology side of Beyond Good. And then also, Greg, one of our favorites here. It's just out of my reach. The Winning Link by Billy Ray Taylor. So if y'all sign up for that, our session tomorrow, email Amanda, hit the drawing. It's Amanda@supplychainnow.com. And we're going to pick some book winners. So y'all consider that. And we hope to see you tomorrow. Greg, before we wrap here, on the first Supply Chain Buzz of 2023, man, that is hard to believe. And folks, again, you can join us every Monday, 12 noon Eastern time for some of the leading stories across global industry. But Greg, on the front end, we led with one of your leadership challenge for everyone listening, right? Tie that into the latest with that said. As we wrap, what is one, give you a little time to think about this, like 7 seconds. What is one aspect of global supply chain you think folks should keep front and center based on, call it innovation, call it disruption, call it maybe some surprises? What's one sector, one aspect of the whole global supply chain ecosystem that folks should keep on the radar more than they usually do?
I can tell you, this is probably not where you were expecting this answer to go, but what's new, right? Just like all things in supply chain are complex and combinatorial and not necessarily a zero-sum game. I've been thinking about this a lot over the last year or so, and that is ESG. Don't think of ESG as a cost to your business. Think of it as one of the costs to your business. One cost that can impact positively or negatively your top line, the resiliency of your supply chain, the speed, the reliability of it. Think about how it can impact all of those things, and start to consider that as an additional leg of the stool for your supply chain. Look, I mean, let's face the fact that your goods could be turned away at the port if they come from Xinjiang province and you cannot definitively prove that slave labor was not used. There is no room for plausible deniability in supply chain anymore. Only De Beers can get away with crimes and still be able to do business. And but ESG, by the way, the S is not for sustainability. That's for social, environmental, social, and governance. So think about how treating the environment poorly, treating people poorly, or treating the government poorly, right, or laws or process or policies poorly could negatively impact your business. And be aware of that as yet one other thing that you need to consider in your supply chain. It's not, regardless what anybody wants to say. And in the States, I don't know if this is a big issue elsewhere, but in the States, there are politicians who want people not to invest in ESG initiatives because they feel like they are detrimental to business. They absolutely are not. Regardless of what you feel about climate change or any of those things, they are risk factors in your business. The environment, social, and governance issues are a risk factor in your supply chain. And as I said earlier in the show, you need to eliminate the fragilities in your supply chain to assure resilience. And things like the possibility that your goods could be rejected at the port. Or let's not forget the fact that if you have excess emissions, and by the way, 92% of all emissions produced by any company are in their supply chain. If you have excess emissions, know that that's costing you money. How? That's burning fuel for the most part. So that burning fuel is a cost. If you can reduce the cost of burning fuel, you also do good by the environment. And as I say, I don't care why you do good, just do good.
Right.
Right. I mean, do it for selfish reasons. Seriously.
But do it.
But do it. I mean, you really do have to think about that. I mean, it's more than just philanthropic. It's more than just ethical. It really is good for your business, and people need to change their perspective. Much like they used to think you can't reduce your inventory and still increase your customer service level, your on time in full service level. You absolutely can do it. I've done it with thousands of companies, and I believe, and that that was kind of the pendulum effect. People would either be way overstocked so they could fill inventory, or way understocked so they had lower cost. But you can balance those things and be able to do both if you're very, very diligent and efficient. And
agreed.
Diligence and efficiency is really what ESG is all about.
So
didn't think we were going there, did you?
No, I liked it. So Jason is tuned in via YouTube, and folks, YouTube's a great, easy place to connect with our content. So he's a big fan of ESG reporting, but get this, Jason loved the De Beers comment that Greg just made there. I agree. Adrian, yeah, ESG is going to be really interesting to me, very impactful, already has in many ways. And Kavan, hey, thank you for being here as part of these sessions. I love the leadership. I thought leadership you drop across social and here in these sessions. So happy New Year to you. Hey, one final thing, and I keep adding, sorry, folks, this is the first one. We're out of practice, Greg, but
yeah, we're not that far over.
That's right. And who can, and it's our show. We can,
right.
they can stop tuning in. They could just take off. But hey, we're catching up with Kelly Barner this week. I can't wait to do that. And folks, if you know Kelly Barner, and Dial P for Procurement, right? Special series. Well, she released a very special episode. I want to make sure we call it to y'all's attention because this was unique for her style. It's very personal and transparent and kind of a intimate when it comes to some of the family stories that Kelly has. And it's all about her dad, her late father, Timothy J. McCarthy, and some of the best advice that he had ever given her. Unfortunately, we lost Mr. McCarthy last September, I believe. And she released it on what would have been Amanda, either his 70th or 71st birthday. We released that as a replay on Supply Chain Now, but you can find it there, I think last week, or you can find it at Dial P for Procurement. But a really special episode, really good practical takeaways, but also she shares some humor stories and just some really, it's what making content's all about. It's very authentic. It's very powerful. It's very practical. And it's good if it's come from Kelly Barner. Greg, give you a comment there, and then I'm going to sign us off.
I love the simple and straightforward nature of Irish wisdom. In so few words, so many things can be said. And Tim was he was no exception in that regard. And that's one of the things that Kelly shares in that episode. So have a listen.
Have a listen. You will appreciate the 30 minutes or so you spend. So, okay, Greg, we got to call it a day. Folks, thanks for everyone that showed up today and all the great comments. No, we couldn't get to all of them. But hey, the good news is you can join us here live every Monday. Sometimes it's Greg and I. Sometimes it's friends from across industry.
Kelly and Kevin. Yeah,
that's right. Kelly and Kevin. I think next week, speaking of, is Digital Transformers version with Kevin L. Jackson. He'll be with us live. But again, one of our favorite parts is what you contribute via all the comments. So y'all have a wonderful rest of your week. But hey, it's all about, you'll hear us share some good ideas. You'll see a lot of great ideas in the comments from the stories we cover, but it's not good enough just hearing it and listening. You got to act on it, right? Deeds, not words. So with that said, Scott Luton, Greg White, signing off for now, challenging you in this gorgeous new year where anything's possible. Do good, give forward, and be the change. And with that said, we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.